Bet.
Election is about with Senior Counsel Ahmednasir Abdullahi. Karibu sana. We've heard what you had to say earlier on, and political scientist Professor Adams. Let's start with you, Professor, because Ahmednasir had the first go at it. Tonight, in this conversation that Azimio candidate Raila Odinga and running mate Martha Karua are having, what did you make of it? What was the whole point of this?
Well, I think that one I should ask you media stations, but the fact that you had Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, if I go by the questions that they were being asked about the race generally, they were being asked about their manifesto, they were being asked about the day-to-day happening concerns that Kenyans have. And I think, from where I sit, they did a perfect job.
They did a wonderful job. Ahmednasir, maybe you had the benefit of what he said. I would say that the Azimio manifesto has holes, and in his analysis that this is what was happening this evening, that the campaign has realized that there is no plan on how to do some of these things, and just trying to now fill that. From where you sit, is that correct?
Unless somebody doesn't understand what a manifesto is all about, then they can say that. First, let me say what the manifesto does. It has three components plus what it calls enablers. It has the component on economic revolution, it has the component on social transformation, and it has the component on governance, those being the three pillars. James Smart, anybody who goes to where even the term manifesto came from the Communist Manifesto of Karl Marx, it's a statement of intent. And if you go to the history of this country, KANU had a manifesto which was then translated into sessional paper number 10 of 1965. I'll just give you a few examples. NAC had a manifesto which was then translated into the economic recovery and strategy document. Jubilee had a manifesto, and those who have been there know, which was then translated into the Big Four agenda. So I don't know where the holes are, and unless somebody tells me.
Yeah, I mean, you brought this up first, so let's get into it now. Where are the holes in this manifesto from where you see?
I think I don't have to explain, but I think it's obvious considering the range of things that the candidate and his running mate addressed, and the various items they sort of refreshed. But I think, we don't have to go to the history of manifesto. I think it's quite obvious that we have two political parties that are running during this election and have taken two different approaches. We have the deputy president and his running mate, who have almost visited 47 counties in this country, sat with the people in those 47 counties and asked them what their needs were, whether it is political issues, whether it's economic or social issues, synthesized those and have given to the experts, to write. Other side, we have the, former Prime Minister and his running mate, who have done, a desktop job, People just wrote, a typical manifesto, as he said, where people just, drafted those three pillars. And I think it's, in my view, it's a realization of the lacunas and the inadequacies of that compelled the former Prime Minister and his running mate to have one final shot before the Deputy Prime Minister, in complete contrast of what Raila has shown, to at least have a say, so that even when the Deputy Prime Minister and his team are launching, at least people can remember that the manifesto they shared with Kenyans, which I think even Prof will agree with me, has left zero impression on Kenyans. And that is why today I think they are rehashing what they think are the main issues of that manifesto. I think it's a damage control in your view.
Prof, would you accept that as a statement of intent?
Well, look, you've asked Senior Counsel a very pertinent question, because you did indicate that before I arrived here, he said that there are holes. And you have asked him to tell you those holes. You have said he's shying away. He's not telling you those holes because there are no holes. Let me give you, for example, what the Prime Minister said today and Martha Karua, and you'll find it in that manifesto. For example, if you go to how they are going to address the issues that touch 1 inch, which is the economy, for example. They are basically saying, and it's in that manifesto, that through the social protection of 6,000, we are trying to do what countries of the world have done, which is to have a universal basic income. And he even gave the examples of the countries. He gave the example of the UK. He gave the example of Brazil. He gave the example of right here in Africa, Namibia. Go to the small-scale traders that he talked about, the SMEs and the Juakali sector. He stated that in this country today, James Mart, if you go along Gong Road, if you go along River Road, you'll find these carpenters, you'll find these welders, you'll find these Juakali artisans. But when it comes to getting a tender from government, they cannot get a tender from government. Why? Because James Mart, who has a degree, who has a certificate, will go and get that tender. Where will James Mart go and get the goods? It will be from River Road, it will be from Jogo Road, it will be from, so these are brokerages. Right there in the manifesto, he's talked about the recognition of prior learning. Why do you need this recognition for prior learning? So that these people have a certificate, so that they too can go directly to the government. The lowly people can go directly to the government and get this tender. Now, why would you need them to get this recognition for prior learning? Because even if you were to try and take these people from their trade for 2 weeks, for 1 month, they would go hungry.
Yeah,
and that is there. I'm just trying to tell you that what he's talking about is there. Lastly, allow me, so that he said that they are going to every county. Azimio long did that in the lead-up to the unveiling of the candidate on December 9th. 11 parts of the country, and you saw in the videos of that day, the media were there being played on what the peoples of each region were saying one, and that's what went into the manifesto.
Doctor is a professor, and he knows how academia frowns on plagiarization when you plagiarize the work of others. And I think the point he has made now is just how they plagiarized the Deputy President's economic platform of bottom-up. I mean, it's a poor attempt at that, really. When I listen to you, I mean, it's a very poor attempt in copying what has already been done. And if you listen to the Prime Ministers today, I think Prime Minister Raila has just realized, the absence of policy that connects him to the people of Kenya, or that addresses, the burning question of what is facing Kenya today, whether it is, bad governance, whether it is food insecurity, whether it is, inequality among Kenyans. And without acknowledging or without admitting that he has no well thought out platform, what he does is that he picks pieces from what the Deputy President has been saying all. And when Prof now says that, we have visited the whole country and we have done this, I mean, there is no evidence of the Deputy President and his team going to Mandera, going to Wajir, going to Turkana and taking notes of what the people of those counties want.
So that's the difference. I mean, that's the difference.
Yes, yes. One is people-centric. I mean, it is based on, the needs of the people of Kenya, whether it is Homa Bay, whether it is Busia. One group has visited, and, addressed the peculiar needs of those people.
It's a good place to talk about the economy and the bottom-up, because there's a question about what exactly is being proposed, not a duplication of what is devolution. How is, bottom-up, promising things that people want in the counties, not promising the devolution setup, as an example?
And I think, the devolution, the system, if you look at the Constitution of Kenya, there is two systems of government. We have the national government, and then we have the devolved government. And I think Article 4 or 5 of the Constitution talks about this. The bottom-up is not about devolution. It's going deeper than devolution. It's addressing specific households within a devolved unit. So that you address, for example, if you go to a place like Mandera, what are the peculiar issues that faces those communities? And you address it not through the programs of the devolved government, but through tailor-made programs by the national government.
Senior counsel is really amazing me. But I can tell you this, and I can tell you what he's preempting. Come Thursday, I assure you, James March, you'll see a lot of borrowing from the Azimio manifesto. That's why it took them 1 month. After the Azimio manifesto was released, they now started running around that how can we justify what we will release on Thursday. In fact, one of their think tanks, immediately our manifesto was released, said that we had copycatted them. And then he was asked, but where is your document that they copycatted? I'm telling you, you can call us again next week.
I'll be happy to do that.
You will see a lot of borrowing, a twisting of words here, a placement of figures as if the manifesto is a budgetary statement. I'm telling you, call us again.
I have a question.
Yeah. I think we commend the professor for the imagination he shows here. What's really to copy about the manifesto for Azimio? I don't think there's anything that's worth copying.
But to be fair, we've not seen it's going to be released on Thursday.
But I'm just projecting, considering how poor it is. I don't think someone should copy it.
James, you have even asked him, what is the difference between devolution and bottom-up? Has he really told you what bottom-up is?
Yes,
it's just a slogan.
No,
I'm telling
not.
You.
It's two
just
different
a slogan.
levels of government.
Let me give.
It's two different levels of government.
That's devolution.
Listen to me.
That's devolution. That's not bottom-up.
Listen to me.
Yeah.
Both are. The devolved unit and the national government are two levels of government anchored in the Constitution. And I have said, and I will repeat for your benefit, that devolution addresses one level. The bottom-up comes from the national government and addresses the peculiar needs of certain sectors of society through programs made at the national level. If you can't get that, you won't get anything.
Let me educate senior counsel a little bit.
And the public, we're here to exchange information. Yes.
You see, what he's talking about, you have either a centralized government or a decentralized government. When you have a decentralized government, you can have either a federal system, the way you have in the United States or Germany, or you can have a devolved system, the way you have in South Africa or Kenya. Or you can have, within a centralized system, deconcentration, which means either privatization is down there, or you have programs such as District Focus for Rural Development that Kenya had. And therefore, what they're saying is not new, because Kenya, when it got independence, started with a semi-federal system of government, what we normally call Majimbo, whereby you had the central government and you had the regional governments, which was done away with by the Jomo Kenyatta regime, and we reverted to the centralized system. Subsequently, the centralized system started asking itself, how do you develop in such a manner that the whole country is developing together? Several policies came thereafter, like the basic needs approach, which was like making sure that everybody has food, has shelter, has clothing. Subsequently, the district focus for rural development that was led by Nyachai, in which you are placing development at the district level. And now we have devolution in which we have the national government,
So,
county government.
yeah.
And remember, the same constitution says that other than having the county government, you can decentralize to the lowest level, which means from the county government, you can go to the ward level. It's already there. What they're saying is not new. I'm telling you.
But I think it's completely missing it. And
Let's clarify this.
No. Let me explain it.
Yeah.
He's talking about structures, taking a historic snapshot of many years back. Bottom up is not about structures. Bottom up is about programs, and I'm saying it for the third time. It's about programs by national governments.
Example?
Listen.
Example?
Just listen. It's programs by national governments, for example, whether it is, on certain issues, whether it is...
Which issues?
Whether it's, for example, financing of certain sectors, but implemented at devolved units, not programs of... It's independent of the programs of devolved units that target certain people within the devolved units. So that is the essence of it. It's a complete dichotomy.
Have you even heard what he has said? Does it even make sense?
No, so we have to make sense for the public.
No. Listen to me. I think the prof is, trying to waste a lot of time on this historical evolution of certain forms of governments that are completely irrelevant to the issues we are discussing in terms of what the bottom up entails.
So how do we fix this? How do we fix this?
Let me just ask him, because he's really repeated bottom up nearly throughout. Let me give an example of what the Deputy President has kept on saying. Hawa mama mboga, hawa watu wa boda boda, hawa watu wenye wako chini, tutaweka, mara it is 100 billion, mara it is 50 billion, you can go to the cliffs. Let me ask him, where will you put that money? As we have said, that we will put it, for example, 6,000 in people's pocket. We have said that we will give recognition of prior learning. You, that 50 billion or 100 billion, what will you put it to?
What does it mean? What will you put it to?
You can't just throw the money there. It must go to some function.
So
what is he saying?
Let me understand. So let's go to, the question of the economy and distinction between what both sides actually are arguing and promising is an important thing for this election, gentlemen. On the one hand, the question on bottom up and how the money gets to the people is a fair question, is it not?
Absolutely.
Yes. So how will, say, the Mamamboga, so let's take one sector, the Mamboga, how will they get access to their money? The 50 billion,
the
100
50
billion, whatever it is that is big.
You mean in terms of the mechanism that will take it from the central government?
Yes.
That's for the central government. You're concerned about the mechanism that delivers the money to Mamamboga?
No, but you have said it will be invested there. How?
This is the prof question. Yes.
Assume, for example, there is County X.
Okay.
We have the. If you listen to the Prime Minister today, he said, from the National Center for Statistics, we have how many people are below the poverty line. The government has all this data in every county on how many people live below poverty line or how many people do what kind of business they do. So it is for the Treasury, once they budget this 50 or 100 million or 50 million, to create a mechanism that channels, whether it is through, for example, like I think there's some money that's channeled through NSSF. There's money that's channeled. It's for the government, to create the mechanism. Yes. And that is not rocket science. How to disburse money from the center to the people you are trying to impact their lives.
And the intention here is that going through the devolved system way will not achieve the same.
No. It's completely different from that. It's a national government program, not a devolved government's program.
You see, yes, Matt, what he's not telling you...
I want to move from this to the next topic.
What he's not telling you, and I think you have really been asking, will this 50 billion, let's assume as he says that the government has the statistics, will it go directly to Mama Mboga's pocket? Will it go to creating a market? Will it be a loan? He said that we don't have a how. Let him tell us how.
Those are fine details. Do you think, look, I mean, those are fine details. I mean, there are bureaucrats and technical people who will address those issues.
Very well.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about this universal basic income from your side, the 6,000 shilling. And, you know, Raila Odinga today and Martha Karua tried to explain how this would work. It's 6,000 shillings given to, you know, again, look at the records, government records from what I had, and give to the
households.
Yeah, to households.
Yeah.
About 142 billion or thereabouts in 44. A year. 44 billion.
Yes.
In a year.
Well calculated.
How will that happen?
How that will happen basically is, you see, if you go to a country that has already done it, and that's how we are going to do it, first you go and identify those households that live below the poverty line. Basically what we are saying, James Mart, you go to Adams Oloo's family. There are 4 people in Adams Oloo's family, and all the 4 don't work. If all of them don't work, which means they don't have any income, that's the first stage of qualification. In other words, you'll first go and bracket out those who qualify. Let me give you an example by the practical one, which is already there, that you have the cash transfer for the elderly, where you have already decided that the elderly is anybody 70 and above. Once you go and get that 70 and above, then you use the infrastructure of government, the chiefs, the DOs, the county commissions, and all that. They are able to identify them. And that's how the cash transfer usually go to this elderly. The same shall apply to these households.
So the assumption here is we have this 144 billion.
Yes.
Where's it coming from?
I think the Prime Minister did explain, James Mart, that once we get into office, as we shall, on August 9th, the first thing that you do, fighting corruption is long term, but the first thing that you do is that the government usually has a budget, but governments also create supplementary budgets. And we shall look at which are the areas that we feel that are not of priority, so that we give this universal basic income priority, because for Azimio, the livelihoods of Kenya matter, and we shouldn't have other Kenyans able to put bread and butter on the table and others go without a meal.
I think you have asked a good question. I mean, budget is about, you know, revenue versus expenditure. They want to expend $144 billion.
That's in the year.
Yes, 144 billion.
Yeah.
If you have a well thought out program, like Prof is saying here, you should be able to say that these are the sectors we are taking from because they are not priority, and we will pay.
But then I will be doing a supplementary budget,
that
which
they don't have, or they can't show from the current budget, clearly shows how ill thought this is really. I mean, it's a populist program that has, I mean, it's poorly thought like many of the things.
James Marsh.
Okay.
You should easily tell us that we are stopping infrastructure, or we are cutting on our foreign missions, we are closing this, or we are reducing from the military, and we are bringing here.
I told you, they'll come with a budget statement. Ours is a statement of intent. Once we are in government, we'll have a budget office. We'll have an appropriations committee. We will have a treasury. They'll do it.
So we worry about these problems after?
We have already demonstrated to you that it is doable. Let me give you an example, because you know me, I like using practicalities. When NAC came up with a manifesto on free primary education, you remember, James Mata, I don't know how old you are then.
Yes, 2002.
2002. And it was January, and the kids were going to school. And NAC said, look, we made a promise. If I can just give an example of one school, Olympic Primary School, more than, it was amazing. And when President Kibaki was asked, what do we do? We hadn't prepared for this. President Kibaki, in his philosophy of working nation, said we made a promise, and indeed, every kid entered. We are not talking slogans. We are talking what has happened before. And you know that that NAC team that made things work is in Azimio. They are not in Kenya Kwanza.
What a poor analogy he gives. What a poor
No,
analogy.
just address my facts.
No, but look at
you,
this.
You can use your cliches, just address
look,
my facts.
Look, when you say, when he compares 144 billion budget with free primary education, he can't create the correlation between the two because there's none. Free primary education was easy to implement because...
It was not about cost, it was about implementing.
Wait. Free primary education was easily to implement because you are telling the parent that's bringing his year to class 1 that you have nothing to pay. Just bring the child. Here, he has 144 billion that he doesn't know where it's coming from.
It will come.
That is the difference. But he can't see. He can't see. He's comparing apples and oranges.
He's missing the point because what I was answering was different.
Yeah.
On the other one, I did answer you about a supplementary budget. So I won't even bother to respond to that.
Let's gentlemen, the question on the economy will always, you know, and this perfect time because it's 41 days to the election and both sides, both sides that actually one of which will walk into office is important to answer this question with clarity. But just a side question on this, what is the question in this election, right? What are Kenyans actually being asked to vote for in this election? Let me start with you, Senior Councillor Ahmednasir.
I think a lot. I think this is a very important election for Kenyans. We are coming from, a transition to a new dispensation, hopefully. There are two candidates with, different backgrounds, different promises, different teams, different manifestos. So I think for Kenyans, I think this is an, epoch-defining elections. Will you put your trust in in the deputy president's team, or will you put your trust in the former prime minister's team? And I think the choices are very clear in terms of what both sides presents.
Prof, what are Kenyans being asked in this election from where you sit?
From where I sit, Kenyans are being asked, who can you trust with the leadership of this country? This country has gone through webs and cycles of success and failure, success and failure. And Kenyans are asking, who can we trust with the real change? And I can tell you, James Mart, the difference is as day and night. James Mart, Kenyans will ask, who can I put my children who are going to school under? Will I put it under a gentleman and a lady who have a track record of empowering children? Or will I put it under two gentlemen whose history, right now, if you drive along Langata Road, there is a signboard. This property belongs to Langata Primary School. Children were tear-gassed there for purposes of private interest. Kenyans will be asking, who can you trust? Kenyans will be asking that at a time that we had the post-election violence, when people were being displaced, a Kenyan's land was annexed at the height of the post-election violence. Kenyans will be asking that if you go to the coast where there are squatters, and it's not clear how 2,500 acres of land was acquired, who can you trust?
I mean, let me just chip in a little bit. You know, you asked that question like it was never asked about the candidates. This question was asked 4 times about the Honorable Prime Minister. I mean, this, as someone who has voted for so many years, like myself or like Professor, this question was asked about the Prime Minister almost 4 times. And every time, the voter has refused to put his trust in the Prime Minister. So this is the, I mean, this is the 5th time that Kenyan voters have been asked. But we have already answered. Majority of us have answered that question 4 times. And I think most of those voters who answered that question 4 times will answer it probably the same way. I don't see why you should change your views about a person you have made up your mind 4 previous times.
But every election is different. But let's deal with the question of what sort of like the 2 tickets and what they represent.
Yes.
Right? The Prof is very clear on what the ticket of Azimio brings. It's a reformist ticket. He spoke about their track record and what Kenyans would have comfort in sort of the kind of 2 individuals who have sort of a similar history. Contrasting that to...
No, before we contrast it, I mean, it's not fair to say that the Prime Minister and Mother Karoi's running mate are reformist candidates. There is no history in terms of their reform credential. Let's not use the word reform as a state of mind, you know, something that's in a person's mind. It's not a state of mind. Reform is, you know, empirical evidence of what they have done. The Prime Minister has been a Minister for Energy. He has been a Minister of Roads. He has been a Prime Minister. The good lady has been Minister of Justice.
Minister for Water.
Minister for Water. What are the reforms they have brought in those sectors or in the broader perspective?
I think this one, to provide context to this.
Reforms is a word that is abused and misused.
You do not think that these 2 candidates or these 2 personalities have had a sort of a history that fought for something in this country? That does not count for anything.
No, I have said many times, and I will repeat, that the history of the former Prime Minister has never been a reform agenda. It has been, you know, it has been a personal pursuit to acquire power. And he has done it in so many ways, right from...
Even when he was getting arrested?
Yes. I mean, yes. It was a quest to get power. It was never about reforming. Every time, if you look at his politics post 97, it was not about reforming the country. It was about increasing his mathematical probability to take power. That distinction must always be made, and it must never be lost.
Prof.
Look here. When Kenyans were getting scarce in this country, when Kenyans were being tortured in the Nyayo torture chambers, when Kenyans were being exiled, when Kenyans were being detained, the Kenya Kwanza ticket were in the bosom of that brutal regime. When this country was being plundered from Goldenberg, the 2 Kenya Kwanza ticket were in the bosom. James Smart, you have seen endorsements that have come from Martha Karua, from the Muslim community, from his fellow colleagues. Have you seen special DOs or former DOs coming to endorse Rigathi Gachagua? They are ashamed. They can't come out. They don't want to show the country that we are part of that diabolical time in our country.
I think history is always very important, and I think the misrepresentation Professor is putting out cannot go without correction first. When he says, when Kenyans were being detained, when Kenyans were when Kenyans were going to exile, the two Kenya Kwanza candidates he said were possum bodies of government. And it's not true, because during that time, when I was a student at the University of Nairobi, the deputy president was my youngmate. We were admitted at the same time. We graduated at the same time.
But that's what he joined.
Wait. He was a student. So he was not part of the government.
But he became part of it.
Let us not, misrepresent history, because
became part
we
of
will
it.
always correct you when you falsify it.
He became
and you're
part
good
of
at it.
Okay, let's talk about the record then of the deputy president and Rigathi Gachagua in totality. Both of them have been part of government for a long time.
Just like the prime minister was.
Yeah, but we're contrasting now. Let's talk about their own part of the record.
Go ahead.
Exactly, yeah. So in terms of history, what he's talking about, that there's obviously contrast here. That there was others who, in that time, especially of the Nyayo era, the early 90s, maybe it was 2000, that they were on one side of that regime that was, at that time, would be said, was the one that was oppressing Kenyans. And the others were on the opposition at that time. That is the record that we're talking about. How does that sit?
Yes, but I think someone talked about this, if you look at former President Moi Kibaki, he was part of that regime until he resigned from it. If you look at the current president, he was part of that regime until he resigned. Let's not forget that Prime Minister Raila was once upon a time a very powerful Secretary General of KANU. Yes. He was a very powerful Secretary General of KANU. He was part of the apparatus of the state. It's only that when Moi refused to appoint him his successor, that he turned tables on him. But this selective reading of history will not do anybody good. Yes. KANU was once upon a time the only party, and everybody was a member of that party, or if you want to be anything in government. So, fair enough. Gachagua was a DO. People say that, they falsify history and say that he served in Molo. I think everybody has realized that that's false. But unless you can show that there are certain specific abuses that he committed, being a DO doesn't mean much, really. He was a DO, he was a district officer, just the way someone was a DC or someone was a PC, and they have led their own career. That he was a DO on its own doesn't mean much.
Prof, what is that one thing that is very wrong with this ticket of William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua? What is that one thing that doesn't sit right with you?
No, there are several things, but...
Give me top of mind.
Top of mind is hypocrisy. Let me give you an example. I think Deputy President William Ruto has time and again told us how the 1 mile, how the SGR, how the tarmac roads, and all that were crafted in his boardroom, because it's the success. Deputy President has been silent during the same period. How come laptop was not delivered? How come the 6-month stadium was not delivered? Where the NYS scandal was crafted? Where the medical equipment scandal was crafted? Where Eurobond was crafted? Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. What's the one thing that doesn't sit right with you with Raila Odinga and Martha Karua's candidature?
Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. This is a man who is running on a party called Azimio. And the chairman of that party is President Uhuru Kenyatta. and then he says that he's not part of government. He is the candidate for the ruling party. That is why President Kenyatta is the chairman of his party. And when there is a meeting of that Politburo of the party, I mean, it is chaired by President Kibaki. Such hypocrisy cannot be entertained. Then he is telling the deputy president to resign because the deputy president says he is not government, and Raila says he is not government. Raila's campaign is solely funded by the office of the... Wait. Raila's... You know, last time, you will remember that Raila could not even raise funds. That's why he had these pay pills. Have you seen him having pay pills this time?
Obama raised from the
he doesn't have this time because every penny, every helicopter they fly is paid by the office of the president. Money budgeted for other functions being diverted for his campaign. That is hypocrisy. That is a liar.
James Matt, this country needs a principled leader. When you're a principled leader, like Jaramogi was, like Ken Matiba was, like Simeon Nyachae was, if you feel that where you are, where you sit, in organization theory we teach that where you sit determines where you stand. If you find that where you are sitting, you can't stand up tall on it, then you resign. But let me just answer what he has said. Raila Odinga has cooperated with governments. Raila Odinga has entered coalition governments. So that when he entered into a cooperation with Daniel Arap Moi in 1998, and he finally found that they couldn't cope, he walked out of government. When he was in the coalition government with Mwai Kibaki, as he stated today, he stayed until the end because they had differences, but they had ways of resolving them. When it comes to the Jubilee government, he is not in government. The other day, James Matt, when a cabinet meeting was called, was Raila Odinga there? Who was there? Tell me, James Matt.
The deputy president there, but I know that's...
Let me finish. Just one more. This particular government, you had nominees from the president's side and from the deputy president's side of the cabinet ministers, because cabinet executes government policy, and it comprises of nominees of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President Ruto. Tell me any nominee of Raila Odinga in that executive.
Let me answer him, because I like the spin, the euphemism he uses when he uses the word cooperation. What he doesn't tell us is that whether it is in 1997, whether it's in 2007, or whether it's in 2017, every time the electorate refuses to give Raila mandate and instead give someone else, he creates trouble and chaos.
So Craig Lau was wrong.
Let me finish. He creates chaos and confusion so that he is co-opted, so that he is bribed. That's what he has done in 1997 with LDP and KANU. He was made Secretary General of KANU. Subsequent to that, he did the same with Kibaki. And now he has done with President Kenyatta. And the will of the people, you know, people have always made up their mind consciously not to give mandate to Raila. But what he has done, and I think he's commending it because he said he's using the word cooperation. I mean that.
So an interesting
cooperation governments are all over the world.
He turns the way because he has no mandate and usurps executive power through the back door. And I think that's what many people are calling political conmanship. That needs to stop in this country.
Let me just give you an example of political deceit. The other day, and William Kabogo told us, the other day, William Ruto asked Mount Kenya MPs that between Kithure Kindiki and Rigathi Gachagua, advise me on who should be the running mate. 27, according to William Kabogo, voted for Kindiki. 3 voted for Gachagua. 1 voted for Muturi. He is even lying to his own lieutenants. How much more will he lie to the country if he can lie to his own lieutenants?
I don't think we'll resolve the question of hypocrisy, gentlemen.
No. I think Prof should be just fair to many who are listening to him, including us. A presidential candidate can even Ruto has the powers, absolute powers,
then why
to
ask?
Pick you.
Why ask?
To pick you.
Why
when
lie
you
to
will
the
bring
people
nothing
that,
to the table,
why lie to them
Yes.
that please
But
suggest?
You don't address that he could not pick his running mate. It is Uhuru who picked for him. You don't address that.
You saw.
him.
I can assure
you.
you.
Can't address that.
I can assure you, Ahmednasir.
Go and address.
Go and look at the record number
Because-
1
because
to
he
3
has no
that
say
the panel
in
that the panel was created
Look at
gave to Honorable Raila Odinga. James Martin, he is now saying.
Even
that
you have seen his proposed cabinet.
In reaction,
Yes.
in
Gentlemen,
reaction,
yes.
in reaction to the nomination of Martha, he now rushed and said that he'll appoint half of his cabinet women.
Fair enough.
Look at even if if you come to Azimio Council, leave alone the nomination of Martha, you'll find Charity Ngilu there, you'll find Sabina Chege there, you'll find Naomi Shaban there. Look at the founding parties and look at the aligning parties of Kenya Kwanza. No woman. And then he tells you that he'll appoint half the women.
I need to run. I need to finish.
James, before we finish,
Yes.
How is that relevant?
Is that relevant?
The composition, how is it relevant?
It's relevant because
What we are talking
he
about
won't,
is
he
the
won't
lack,
be able to
the
do
lack
it.
of
He's
independence
lying.
of a presidential candidate, that even in case he wins, which is most unlikely, his cabinet has already been predetermined for him by the outgoing president. You call that a puppet, surely.
Look. He bet BBI like a horse. Then when he comes to his agreement, Chief Minister is there. King, if you bring this, you get this. Mandeleo Chap, if you bring this, you get this. Dishing out positions which he condemned.
What are these irrelevant
Political deceit.
Here's the
Deceit,
question.
hypocrisy.
Hang on, Prof. Hang on, Ahmednasir. My final question, I need to leave. Who should take the blame for how this government has been run in the last 10 years?
I mean, James, you are a very smart journalist, but I'm very disappointed with that because the answer is obvious.
No, it's a fair question.
No. The problems this country is facing is the sole creation of Prime Minister Raila, the malfunctioning of government. You know, Uhuru and Ruto had a very good agenda for the 4 big agenda. He destroyed. He brought BBI, appointed Daktari to be the co-chair, wasted billions, 14, 15 billions on cars, hotels, rooms. Today, Kenyans are dying of hunger. If you look at the north and many other parts of the country, we have lost 5 years because they wanted to bring something called BBI, that brings, completely turns everything upside down. And I think it was good fortune that the court killed it. But why we wasted the last 5 years, why the country is facing this great tension, is just because someone who has been denied the mandate to rule for 4 times and will be denied the 5th time took power through backdoor, thanks to a president who did not realize that we gave mandate to him and not to a surrogate.
Prof, who's to blame? The final question, who's to blame for what has happened in the last 10 years?
If you ask any Kenyan which party is ruling, it's Jubilee.
It's Azimio.
And if you ask Kenya who is the president and deputy president of this country, you'll be told who they are. In 2020, and you have the clips, The deputy president, by his own words, told Kenyans that if anything went wrong, please, next time pull back that clip.
I must have the two of you next.
If anything goes wrong, I and Uhuru Kenyatta will be asked. Ask them what has gone wrong.
Yes, and I think that's a legitimate question. They can answer.
Absolutely.
What has gone wrong.
Absolutely. With all due respect, thank you very much, gentlemen. Shake hands. Senior Counsel Ahmednasir A, thank you very much for coming through and your candid thoughts. And Professor Oloo, thank you very much for coming and, of course, your candid and insightful comments tonight. With all due respect, this is how we do it. Please have a lovely night. My name is James Smart. We'll do this all over again next week. Next time, same station and same space.
This is NTV.